Welcome to Global Grit Conversations, where resilience, leadership, and impact meet across borders. I'm Pamela Campagna, Global Advisor, Professor, and founder of Blue Sage Consulting. Each episode features candid conversations with leaders, builders, and thinkers from around the world who share the moments that tested their resilience and the insights that shaped who they became. This is Global Grit Conversations. So welcome, Sinki, to Global Grit Conversations, and we're very excited to have you here today. We have a lot to talk about, so let's get started. Perhaps you can just share with us a little bit about where you are right now and what you're doing.
Okay, thank you, Pamela, for this invitation. I'm Sinki. That's my name in Cantonese. I'm originally from Macau, Special Administrative Region of China, and now I am in the other side of the world in a city called Medellín, Colombia.
Wonderful. And so it sounds like you've had an experience living in a number of different cultures. How do you think about your identity today? Chinese, Colombian, global citizen. How would you characterize yourself?
It's kind of but interesting question, because depending where I am, I introduce myself differently. So in this conversation, I say, yes, I'm a global citizen, because I'm from Macau and I lived in China, I lived in the UK, and now in Colombia 17 years, and I'm a global citizen. But if it's the people from here who ask me who I am, I would say I'm a China Paisa, Chinese Paisa. What is Paisa? Paisa is people from Medellín or around the region. So I will introduce myself as China Paisa. So if it's in Europe, for example, I will introduce myself differently. I see myself differently too. For example, I would ask a question for you. For example, where is the capital of Finland? Pamela, Can you tell us?
Yes, it would be Helsinki.
Helsinki without the hell. That's me. That's Sinki.
And so when somebody asks you where you're from, then how do you answer that?
I would say I'm from Macau, and if the person don't know anything about Macau, which it happens, so I would say I'm Chinese, and from a city which is called Macau. It used to be Portuguese colony, and now it's the Las Vegas in Asia.
And so it sounds like you use that as an opportunity maybe to share a little bit about the background of Macau, and is that part of your story, do you think?
Definitely, because I was born and raised in Macau when it was still a Portuguese colony in China. It was the first and the last European colony in China, and it has, more than 400 years history of that, and I was the last bit, let's say, of that part of history, because I witnessed the return of Macau to China. In 1999, I was still in my last year of high school, so it was very meaningful, and so all this. And when I was in Macau, it was kind of very Chinese, but it's also very Portuguese. Like everywhere you go, like the street signs or restaurants names, or if you go to a store, supermarkets, everywhere is all in Portuguese and in Chinese. Even now, they are both still official languages in Macau. So Macau is a very special place, and I am so proud to tell people that I'm from Macau.
And what was it like living there before the handover to China? And how was it different after?
Yes, I think before Macau returned to China, everything was, to me, it's Chinese, because I was raised in a Chinese family with Chinese friends, but you could feel the strong Portuguese presence, let's say, in public events or public spaces. It's very much present. I actually also represented Macau to participate running events in Portugal. It was 1998. So Macau's presence in Portugal was also very important. Now, after Macau returned to China, Macau, each day it's more, let's say, it becomes more integrated to China. Let's say not quitting Portuguese, the relationship, but actually strengthening the relationship with Portugal through commercial relationship and more cultural exchange. Because Macau is the window for Portuguese-speaking countries to enter China. Yeah, so it could be Portugal, it could be Brazil, it could be Mozambique. Yeah, different Portuguese-speaking countries. When they want to enter China, Macau is the perfect platform. And nowadays, actually this year, Macau also included Spanish-speaking countries in its development plan. So it's very interesting because Portuguese and Spanish, they are very similar, and it's very nice to see Macau can identify it and make it as an opportunity to grow.
And so from Macau, somehow you found your way to Latin America, where you are today. So what was the route that you took to get there?
The route, like the reason.
The way, the path. How did you get there?
Okay, it's a long way. Not just physically, but timingly. Because I was born and raised in Macau. I finished my high school in Macau. I took the decision to do my undergrad in China, in Guangzhou, where it's also in the south of China. It was super nice because I actually knew about China, and I knew about Chinese people, Chinese, like from mainland China. So I made a lot of friends. And after these 4 years in China, I made another decision. I wanted to do a master's degree in the UK. So I managed to start this stage of life in Lancaster University. It's in the north part of UK, close to Edinburgh. And there I finished my first master's degree, which was in visual culture. Yeah, it's related to communication. And after that, I really liked the life there. I don't know, it's because of student life or I just really liked the life there. So I wanted to stay more. So I decided to do another master's degree. It was in applied research and consultancy. So that's my second master's degree, and it's related to companies, business, a little bit different from what I've learned, but it was very cool to do that. And because I already know how to manage my time, so I decided to learn something completely different in my life when I was going to start my second master's degree. So I started to take Spanish in the UK. At first I wanted to learn Portuguese because of Macau's history and the opportunity of knowing Portuguese. But at that time, at that university, it happened that it didn't have Portuguese, but it had Spanish, Italian, Japanese. And so I just really funny moment of my life. I saw Spanish and Portuguese quite similar. It's like, okay, then I learned Spanish. It's a small decision, but it became the decision that transformed my life. Yes, because at that time I knew many Latin friends, and that's
so
my
at
connection.
that time you had many Latin friends because of speaking and learning the different languages, Spanish, Portuguese.
Yes.
And was that your first exposure to Latin culture, or?
Yes.
Sounds like.
Yes. I have to confess, Pamela, that I didn't know the existence of Latin America. I was very ignorant. Latin America didn't exist in my map. In my mental map, it didn't exist. And I didn't know Colombia, where it was. I didn't know Uruguay, where it was, or it didn't even exist. So it was very nice to know these people and know their culture, because I was very active in the university. I was in the basketball team, in the ping pong team, in the Latin American Society, in the cinema, United Nations Association, in many things. And this door of Latin America was something very exciting, I would say, because it's not that they like eating. These people like eating and they like dancing salsa. And I think most importantly, I feel that they are very united people.
And so when you went from Macau to China, and then you went to the UK and studied languages, and then that brought you to Latin America. So not only do you speak multiple languages, but you have also lived in different cultures. So I'm wondering, do you see a difference in the way that people listen or negotiate or build trust or interact between those different cultures?
Yes, definitely, Pamela. I think all cultures are very different, but I think a common thing is creating trust is hard. Means that because I don't know you, why do I trust you, right? And so this is a very important learning from learning different languages, because to learn a different language, basically you are learning a new culture, right? So to deal with culture from people from different cultures, I think the common part is to build trust. And if you have another question about how to deal with that, how to create trust, my answer is, I would say, to learn the language, to speak the language of that culture, if possible. Because I think some famous persons have mentioned that if you want to just speak to the others, yeah, you can speak a common language and the other people hear what you said. But if you want to touch the heart of the person, you speak the language of that person. For example, the Spanish I learned in the UK was the Spanish from Spain, very different from the Spanish from Medellín, for example. The Spanish from Chile, very hard to understand. Spanish from Argentina, Spanish from Venezuela, Peru, they are all very different. So it would be very nice to be able to speak the language. And obviously over time, you build the trust, because it's not just one click or one moment. It takes time.
So how did you do that? How did you approach that quest for understanding the culture? Was there something specific that pulled you to Latin America?
I think maybe I was still very young at that time, 26. Yeah, I think I still think I'm still young, and life is short, and we should try different things, if possible. Learning the languages, it would be the tool to motivate me to speak to different people, to communicate, not just speak, to communicate with different people, the ideas, things that we could do together. I think I really enjoy communicating with the world. I think that's what motivates me to learn different cultures. And actually now, Pamela, I'm learning Portuguese, finally, after 20 years.
Finally. So was there a moment when you suddenly realized, I'm not just visiting another culture, but I'm actually living between cultures, not just with the language and not just physically, but was there something else there?
Yes, I think after so many years living abroad, I think the moment is when I go back to Macau or go back to China. I feel that as if I were a tourist in Macau, for example. So that kind of feeling makes me feel that, okay, maybe I'm Paisa, I'm from Medellín now, or that I'm actually living in the cultures that have built me, like from Macau, from China, from the UK, from Medellín, from Colombia, and that's the kind of feeling that I'm living in between cultures, Pamela. Yeah, it's really funny that you go back to your home where you were born, you grown up, you have your friends, family, and it's like, okay, I don't know this place, or I don't remember this place, or oh, this is the new place, I'm a tourist, and that kind of feeling. And China as well.
Do you remember when you felt that for the first time? When you felt like a tourist for the first time when you went back to Macau?
Actually, after the UK, I think that time to go back to Macau was quite shocking, because I was in China for 4 years and then I went to the UK for 3 years. So that's in total 7 years of absence. And that 7 years is right after Macau returned to China. So when I returned after the UK, I finished my 2 master's degree. Yeah, I already speak Cantonese, Mandarin, English, and a little bit of Spanish and Japanese. So I went back to Macau. I started to live and work there for 2 years. And that time, Macau was totally different. Macau used to have like one peninsula and 2 islands, Taipa and Koloan. That's the names of the 2 islands. But when I went back, I discovered that the bridge had disappeared. I was like, what happened? What happened? Where's the bridge? And then people told me that no, it's been refilled between the 2 islands. So they made a Cotai trip where you can see all the most luxurious casinos and hotels in between the 2 islands. So now there's no 2 islands.
Basically, no more 2 islands.
Yes, I think for me that's the most shocking thing that I found myself kind of being tourist, but also start to understand how to integrate myself to this new culture in a way. Macau has become very international.
So when you think of culture, and in particular your family's culture, what was the dynamic like when they saw you moving from place to place and coming back, having new friends, new relationships? What was that cultural dynamic like?
I think my family in Macau is very Chinese. Like, I think my father or my parents, they couldn't really speak English. Although my father had worked for a Portuguese organization for more than 20 years. But it wasn't necessary to speak Portuguese. Anyway, my brother, he had lived in the US for 10 years. But he had gone back to Macau. So that's my Macau family, in a way very Chinese. And here with my Paisa family, Medellín family, it's a very nice mix throughout all these years. Because at first we had a bit of culture shock. We had quite a bit of culture shock, I have to say. And now with time, I think we have learned to live in a very harmonious way. Yes, because
what are some of the cultural gaps between the Colombian culture and the Chinese culture?
I think we have one thing in common is that we are very collective.
So the cultural and communication gaps between Colombia and the Chinese culture, I guess I'm wondering, for people who feel like they're in between cultures, what advice would you have about how to manage expectations, or you mentioned integrating? Do you have any tips that you'd like to share?
I think it's a process, right? Because first you have to understand why people behave like that and not like this. And then you accept that, okay, they behave like this. Okay, I accept it and it's okay. And then the third part is, okay, I'll also do it like that. It's a process. For example, for me, it was very hard because I'm Chinese and more or less punctual person. And in Latin America, they are very relaxed people. So in terms of time, they are very flexible. It's a positive way of saying being late is okay.
Very, very polite, yes.
Yes, they are very flexible. So it's like if you are organizing, I don't know, a conference, they have a saying which is called la ley de cuarto, 15 minutes of law of 15 minutes. So it's okay to be late for 15 minutes. And if it's a party, it could be 1 hour or 2 hours late, and it's okay, for example. And from the beginning, maybe in my class or in the events that I organize, at first I would get very upset when people arrive late because it's the time of everyone, right? It's like, but now I kind of understand the culture. So I would organize, maybe I would put the time a little bit ahead. So make sure I would say 6:30, and I actually would start at 7, for example. So understand the culture, and you have to play with the games. That's how I integrate myself within this culture, for example.
And what were some of the inflection points, the big changes in your life that changed the path that you were on?
I think nothing is harder than this decision of coming to Colombia. That's the inflection point, because in early 2000, let's say 7, 8, 9, In those times, after Macau returned to China, Macau has become the Las Vegas of Asia. The income of Macau's government, it was already 6-7 times of that of Las Vegas. Macau is growing incredibly. I had 2 master's degree. I spoke 5 languages at that time, blah, 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 blah. So in theory, I had a bright future. I had a good job. I was a news presenter. I was a journalist. Everything was perfect. And I took a decision of, okay, ciao, Macau.
Ciao, Macau.
I am going to Colombia. Yes, I am going to Colombia, where I don't really know this place, but I'm going. It was a hard decision, but I think it's one of the best decisions I've made in my life. That's how everything changed. I had to start everything from zero, literally from zero, from the language, my network, culture, food, music, the way of dressing, the way of speak. Yeah, because if you speak to a Chinese, it would be like this, yeah, sitting with no emotions. But if you speak with a Latin person, it will be, yeah, like dancing.
Yes,
Yeah, moving your, yes, everything is so different. So I think that point, it was 2009. That's how, I think that's where really my life has changed. Is the inflection point we refer to. And why do I come here, Pamela? I think that's the questions of million. Is that when I was doing my master's degree, I started to learn Spanish, as I mentioned before. I get to know many Latin friends, and one of them now is my husband. He's from Medellín, and that's why I came here.
So that sounds like a very, very important life decision. And you
Yes.
left the security of a job and family and the life that you had built.
Yes.
I wonder, when you think about making decisions in your life, big ones like this, how do you make those decisions?
I think first is like you have the guts. You have the guts. Well, second, I have done some research. Means that actually the decision was made in 2009 to actually move here. But I came to Colombia 2 years ago, in 2007. I came here for a field trip. I wanted to see what it looked like in Colombia. If people actually live on the trees, if people drive, if they use lifts, if they eat with, not with hands, but let's say, like a normal place. So when I came, actually people do drive. There are cars. People do eat in restaurants, not on the trees. And they do live in apartments or houses, not in a jungle. So that's 2007. But the most important thing that made my decision was that during the month that I was here, I was in Medellín, I was in Bogota, the capital, I was in the coffee area. I didn't see one single Asian face during the whole month in 2007. So I was like, okay, that's weird. Because anywhere you go, you see, it could be Chinese, it could be from Thailand, Korean, anywhere. But I was really the only Asian face in the whole month, like on the street, wherever I went. So you can see, okay, there are 2 sides of the coins. If you talk to an Asian, it's like, okay, there's nothing for Asian people to do here. Or on the other side of the coin is like, okay, so there's an opportunity. So I saw the other side of this coin. So 2 years later, in 2009, I decided to come. That's how I made the decision. So it's guts plus some kind of field trip, and I made the decision. Also, it has its implications because it's a life entrepreneurship. You start everything from zero.
And it sounds like your approach, when you had that insight of, I don't see anyone here that looks like me, instead of saying, this is not where I belong, you might have said, this is where I could belong. And so you looked at it as an opportunity.
Exactly. That's the best translation. Yes.
I like that.
Yes.
So once you got there, then what did you do? You said 2009?
Yes, 2009. As I said, the Spanish in different countries is different. So I started to learn Spanish again. Well, not from basic, Yeah, but I had to start to study Spanish again in Medellín, which is very helpful because Spanish here, I say, is the best in the world. It's clear, it's not hard to pronounce. If you know different Spanish in the world, you see, personally, I think Spanish from Medellín is the best. So I first start with Spanish, learning Spanish again, and started to build my network. Yeah, because I believe whatever you do, it could be international business, it could be engineering or I don't know, jobs, relationship, anything. You need to have your own, let's say, human network so you can do things. And at that time, yeah, I started to build and start to make friends with the students of that university, because apart from Spanish, learning Spanish, I also took classes of the undergrad courses in the university. So I got to know more people, professors. Slowly I grow my network.
And then from there, where did you start working?
As an entrepreneur, Pamela, it means you do absolutely everything. Means they call you to do translation, okay, I do it. Okay, they call you to teach, yes, I do it. They call you to do anything, you do it. Right? Actually, my first job, Pamela, it was really truly memorable because I just had my baby. She was 1 month old. I was breastfeeding, and one day, one university called me. Okay, we saw your CV. Very interesting. We think you can teach this course. It's like, of course, I can do it in a week. Yes, of course. International negotiations in Spanish. Of course, I can do it. Okay, this is something that I've never told publicly. First, I didn't study international relationship or negotiation. I studied communication. My Spanish sucked at that time. I was breastfeeding. Obviously, I didn't tell the university. So physically, it was very hard, and mentally, it was a huge challenge because I had to study and learn something that I've never learned before in my fifth language to teach. I never taught before either. So it was a really huge challenge because I remember I was breastfeeding and studying at the same time with the computer, organizing my curriculum, what should I talk, cases, all this stuff. I think, thank God, I survived. And actually one of these students in those times today has a PhD and teaching in a local business school here. I'm so very proud. Because he remembers me. And actually at that time and even now to have a Chinese professors in a university is very hard. And it really changed the horizon or mindset of the students.
And so being a Chinese professor or entrepreneur, what did that position you for when you were in Colombia? Did that open doors for you? Did it create opportunities or not?
I don't know about other nationalities, but being Chinese, definitely yes. As I said, the reason that I came to here because there wasn't much supply, let's put it like that. And now I think more and more Colombian people are seeing China as a partner. Yeah, because before many people they would only think China is factory, but now they are seeing China is actually an opportunity, and it's time to go and see how we, like Colombian people, how we could learn from China and do things with China. And I could be the bridge.
And it's interesting. I think the U.S. and China are Colombia's main import partners.
Yes.
And I think they account for $16 billion each in imports. And so I wonder, what do you think that means for Colombian entrepreneurs and businesses and your role in that bridge?
Thank you, Pamela. Last year, China and the US, they have been either number 1 or 2 in terms of being the biggest importer for Colombia. And last year, finally, China become the biggest importer for Colombia, which accounts for 27.5% of the whole imports of Colombia. What it means, yeah, it could be China, it could be the US, or it could be some other countries, but I think Colombia should take this as an opportunity because internationalization is not just about export. Obviously, if you could export, perfect, good. But import, you can also import knowledge, import services, import technology to improve the competitiveness of the local businesses. Yeah, so I think Colombia should take it, yeah, it could be Chinese suppliers or US suppliers or food, anything that they import is to improve quality of life and improve the competitiveness of local businesses. I think if they take it from this perspective, things would get better instead of just saying, oh, we're importing too much from this country or the other, we are not exporting. So instead of complaining, it's more like to see this as an opportunity and find out how to sell to the others. I think that would be my suggestion.
And how do you get your arms around that? There's selling to different cultures in different countries. You've talked about some of the challenges living between the cultures, but are there different types of programs that you see in Colombia to help businesses and entrepreneurs do that?
Yes, definitely. Actually, in Colombia, there are many entities. I actually worked in a public entity before. There is called Ruta Center of Business and Innovation from the Medellin's mayor's office. So what we did, for example, is to create programs for businesses that want to export or internationalize. For example, we had immersion program with Germany. We brought Medellin's entrepreneurs to have 2-week immersion program in Leipzig, in Berlin, in different places, and Frankfurt, for them to immerse and to know how to soft land in the country, right? Mm-hmm. And also we had a program, e-commerce, with Alibaba Group, how to import. Also, it's just to understand the e-commerce ecosystem in China, digital economy. So it's very nice to open eyes for Colombian business people. Now I am working for the Colombian Chinese Chamber of Commerce. So we would have programs with local Chamber of Commerce of how to export to China through cross-border e-commerce, for example. So we organize different programs to help local companies to connect with the Chinese market, in this case, China.
And so when you think about a few years from now, into the future, what sort of impact do you hope to have on this bridging or this cross-communication or cross-border trading?
Yes, in a few years, I believe there would be more Colombian or Latin companies that they could see it is viable, it is feasible to sell to China through cross-border e-commerce. Because now here, people are still very looking within themselves, like this continent, which is okay, right? Because there are natural markets, it's around and all this stuff. But if they want to survive in time, like to see the future, this would be the path or one of the paths that they could sell abroad, e-commerce. And that I would see myself, Pamela, in a few years or less, to have my businesses to help these companies to reach to China. Could be through training, accompanying, missions to connect with the actors that could help them to, let's say, to sell to China, to reach. It could be final customers, or it could be somewhere there in China that they could sell.
Now, are there particular industries or sectors that you think are more viable than others?
Yeah, because Colombia is an agro country, and Chinese, they eat a lot, and they eat let's say the best food, or they would be happy to pay. Let's put it like that. So I would see the agro sector. Coffee is already selling, and banana or any of these blueberries, uchuas, cate, avocado. They could transform It could be these products or transformed processed products, for example, to sell in China. I'm sure there are other opportunities as well, because I've seen New Zealand have sold air in China. So it depends on the storytelling of how you sell to the market. You can sell air, you can sell water. Actually, the biggest business in China is water. Like the richest guy in China, he sells water. So yeah, there are many opportunities that I would like to help continue opening eyes of the Colombian people here, that there are other parts of the world that they could explore.
And being that bridge, is that what
Yes.
you see yourself as?
Yes, definitely.
So finally, when you hear the phrase global grit, what does that mean to you, Sinki?
I think global grit, it's just by the name, is like it's in your hand, the world. I think that's how I feel. Very strong, very sexy in a way. So I hope that the world, this global grit, could convey this message that the world is in our hand, and that we could do things to make the world a better place. Yeah, it could be by doing businesses, by doing exchange, by building bridges, so we could be the facilitator. Pamela, Sinki, yeah, we could be the facilitator of the global grid.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your wisdom and your journey through many parts of the world. And thanks so much, Sinki, and looking forward to the next conversation.
Thank you very much, Pamela, for this invitation. Very special, very nice, and very honored to be here.
We hope today's conversation offered insights that you can use in your own journey. Subscribe for future episodes with global leaders, entrepreneurs, practitioners, emerging voices, and unexpected guests. Until next time, keep leading with purpose and turning grit into growth.